the governor, I forget his name, but that guy, when he shut us all down, there was very few mayors that stood up to him. Everybody head for the hills, everybody tucked their tails between their legs, and they said, you know what, I'm not going against this guy because he's a nut job and he's going to take my funding and he's not going to give me any of my state money and blah, 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 blah. But there was only a few mayors that told him basically to go to hell. We don't need you. We're a strong community and we're going to do what we got to do to survive for our small businesses and for our people. And one of those few mayors is here tonight, Mr. Keith Pekau. Give it up, Mayor Keith Pekau from Orland Park.
Sorry for the length of this, but Steve told me I had 15 minutes tonight, so I had to come up with a pretty long speech and a lot of topics. So a lot of you know me as the mayor in the video. In fact, I've done over 30 public service announcements for the village since COVID began. It was the one that went viral that you probably all saw. I feel it's the government's job, and particularly my job as the mayor, to keep everybody informed about what's going on with the pandemic. From the beginning, there's been a lot of uncertainty about the information that we've received. One frustration has been, at least for me, that the information has constantly changed. I would have preferred that the CDC came out and said, hey, we don't know. And we think it's a good idea to wash your hands. It's a good idea to do that anyways. It's a good idea to distance yourself from other people until we can figure this out. Because now we don't believe anything they say, because first it's wear masks, and it's don't wear masks, and it's back and forth. So just be honest with us. I think we can handle the truth if you tell us the truth. So that, for me, that was the biggest thing. Just tell us the truth. We can adapt. You already saw businesses doing that. In Orland Park, before there was a shutdown order, we had 50% of the movie theater was blocked off, and they were only seating half as many people. A lot of our restaurants were only seating half as many people. People are good people. They were trying to do what was right in a situation that was unknown. Instead, what we got a shutdown. Okay, so in that shutdown, you could go to an essential store with hundreds of other people. But if we went to play golf with 4 of us, we were going to get COVID. We knew that over 90% of the people who died from COVID had pre-existing health conditions. Yet we were still not allowed to go work out in the gym. However, pot stores were essential, so getting high was okay. Liquor stores were essential, getting drunk was good, and that was approved. I mean, you can't make this kind of stuff up. Let's just be logical about it. A family of 6 was allowed to pile in their car and drive to the boat ramp, but only 2 of them could get on the boat, because on the boat they were going to get COVID. What sense does that make? Now, so currently, we can have an open-air concert limited to 20% capacity, but bowling alleys need to be limited to 50 people. And other indoor venues besides bowling alleys, they can be at 50%. Peaceful protests to reopen and religious services were shut down because it was a public health threat. However, violent protests were okay. They were especially okay if they were protesting to defund our police. We can't make this stuff up. By now, you are all aware that Cook County Public Health Department has instituted a quarantine for anyone who travels from certain other states for 14 days. I find that very interesting, considering the Cook County Department of Public Health couldn't even provide masks to our first responders. They also refused to provide addresses of people with COVID to our first responders, putting them at risk. So they will not quarantine a sick person who they know is sick, but they want us to quarantine the healthy. And how are we supposed to do that? Because they said it's our responsibility to do that. 50 different entrance points to Orland Park. We're supposed to man those 24/7. That's 150 people. We have 100 officers in our police force. How are we supposed to do that? Again, makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So let me put this in a nutshell. Throughout this whole COVID thing, we've quarantined the healthy. That's what we've done for the first time in human history. That can't be allowed to happen again. The other thing that I've been doing is taking the governor on his fair tax scheme, which I call the progressive tax. There's really 2 reasons that you'll hear all kinds of reasons to not support this. Is it working? You'll find two reasons to not support this for me. You'll hear a bunch of them.
Yeah, it's on.
Is it working? Keeps cutting out. All right, but for me, there's two reasons. The state has a spending problem, and they can't be trusted.
There you go.
Those are the two reasons. We don't have to worry about it. Let's just keep it simple. The last time we had a true balanced budget was 2011. There was an income tax increase in 2011, and revenues went from $16.1 million in 2011 to $23.5 million in 2014. Yet our deficit increased to $3.9 billion. Long-term debt and unfunded liabilities have ballooned to $254 billion from $56.7 billion in just the last 12 years. J.B. Pritzker doubled the gas tax, and it is now tied to inflation, so it's going to continue to go up. He increased car registrations by 50% and added a boatload of other taxes. Yet the 2021 budget has a $6.5 billion deficit. It's a spending problem. Government pensions are sucking the life out of our budget. When do we do a constitutional amendment for that? In 1970, the pension liabilities for health benefits and to retirees were $2.5 billion. They're now $254 billion. Unfunded liabilities are over 6 times revenue. How many of you who own a business can run a business that way? I certainly can't. Ruben, can you?
Yeah, get out of this.
Okay. So in Orland Park alone, 50% of our property tax levy goes to cover pension costs. It's just not sustainable. That's the problem. The problem is not revenue. The second thing, the state can't be trusted. In 2011, we had a tax increase. It was supposed to be temporary. By 2015, the proponents of the progressive tax fought against keeping it temporary and wanted it to be permanent. By 2017, they got their way. And over Governor Rauner's veto, they still managed to get a 2017, they got another tax increase, back up to 5% and 7% on businesses. So much for temporary. Here's something you don't know. There's this little fund called Local Government Distributive Fund that goes to every municipality, and it's based off of income tax. And the deal that was made years ago when they put in an income tax is that local governments would get 10% of whatever the state collected on a per capita share. And in exchange for that, no one would do their individual income tax, including the city of Chicago. So that number was 10% for over 30 years. In 2011, it was reduced to 6%. In 2015, it went back up to 8%. In 2019, it was back down to 5.65%. Now, you'll hear them say, we're fully restoring it to 6%. Not to 10. Now I want to put this in real terms you can understand. In Orland Park, we received $5.5 million for that LGDF last year. We would have received 9.5. $4 million is a lot of property tax relief, a lot of roads. Homer Glen's half our population. So they would have received about $2 million extra. That'd go a long way to help fixing your roads, wouldn't it? Again, broken promise. They've also been diverting money away from the personal property replacement tax. $311 million this last year. For Orland Park, that's a loss of $1.5 million. The Constitution of Illinois says, and I quote, the state has the primary responsibility for financing the system of public education. In this area, the state funds about 10% of education. Let me repeat, the lottery was also supposed to fund education. Gaming was supposed to fund education. Where does that money go? Pensions. That's where it goes. So again, more broken promises. How about this slogan for those of you old enough to remember it? This is from the 1960s. Toll free by 73. We're still playing tolls. Gone down $3.55 lately and gone up north and paid $7 or $8. In 1989, there was a temporary tax hike also from 2.5% to 3%. Now we're at 5%. But here's a big one. You guys all know that the federal government has provided this money, right, for COVID. So they provided relief to the state of Illinois to the tune of $3.5 billion. According to the federal government, 45% of that is supposed to be dedicated to government entities less than 500,000 people. Okay? So on a per capita basis, that would be $1.57 billion shared across the state, not including Chicago because they got their money directly. On a per capita basis, to Orland Park, that would be $9 million for to be $4 to $5 million. Okay? Instead, the state legislature passed their budget. Instead of sharing 1.57 billion, they're sharing 250 million, and anyone who lives in Cook and Will County are cut out. They get nothing. That's the state, again, taking federal dollars and sticking it in their pocket. Again, they can't be trusted. Forget all the other reasons. Yeah, we know it's going to cost jobs, we know it's going to hurt businesses, but it's not a revenue problem, and the state can't be trusted. Period. So in my first 2 years as mayor, I got a lot of time. But what you don't know is I'm also the guy, I ran as a Republican, which is kind of unheard of for a mayor, okay? And I ran against a 24-year machine-backed Democrat. And I beat him. I was unknown. My first poll, I was down 64 to 10. Everyone told me it was a fool's errand, I'd never get elected. I am proof that the machine can be beat. I had 6 village trustees from both sides of the aisle, both sides, Republican and Democrat, that were aligned with the former machine Democratic mayor. Yet in all that time, here's some of the things that were accomplished in those 2 years. I put a binding term limit resolution on this November's ballot. I ran on it, I put it on the agenda, and I cast the deciding vote 4 to 3. I lowered the mayor's position's pay from $150,000 to $40,000 for the next term, as I promised. I did not take a pension, as I promised. I cut our operating budget by 7.5% in the first 2 years, and shrunk our full-time staff by 5%. I stopped a $4 million restaurant tax. I'm sure, Ruben, you'd be happy to know that. I worked with the board to opt out of the Cook County minimum wage and sick pay ordinances. Now, obviously, the state has since screwed us over and put that minimum wage thing intact. We reduced in Orland Park in the first 2 years debt by over $40 million. Our index crimes, so public safety, pretty important. Our index crimes have dropped to the lowest level since we've been reporting it for 27 years. So that's the kind of stuff that was done with a board that was against me. Now, this was in spite of the fact that the machine was attacking me constantly. I was on the job for a total of 2 weeks when a trustee filed complaints with the state's attorney saying that I had broken bid laws since I was sworn in. 2 weeks. How many of you are in local government? How fast does a bid even get to the board?
That's pretty good.
So for 2 years, I was constantly attacked. They investigated me clandestinely and in violation of the Open Meetings Act, spending $40,000 of taxpayer money with never a vote. The problem is, for them, I don't do business like they do.
That's right.
I'm honest, and I'm transparent. All of our meetings now are on video, they're on audio, and we continually give that information out to the people so that they can see what's going on. That's a marked change from 5-minute meetings where everyone voted 7-0 for the previous 6 years. So at the last election, we managed to get 3 Republican trustees elected in 2019. Since that time, we approved our concert series. We increased our capital program to fix roads and parks that were neglected for years. They ran up debt from $13 million to $158 million from 1998 to 2016. So we couldn't get our roads and parks fixed because we were diverting those funds. So we got all of the, and we've managed through COVID without massive cuts. We've made some where needed, but we didn't have to make massive cuts because we were in a strong fiscal position. Isn't that something the state would like to be in? Why do you think Indiana can weather this? Because they're in a strong financial position, whereas we're bankrupt. So after getting these people elected, we were able to get all this done. In the last year, however, this is not without a lot of attacks. In the last year, there have been approximately 30, maybe a little more, anonymous robocalls against me. I've been called a lot of things, including a child abuser, including that I've taken bribes, but also my family's been attacked. My wife has had letters sent to her job, to businesses in town, and to people who she works with and people who I work with about her, talking about things from high school in North Carolina that don't even exist, calling her things that no one in here would want to be called. And those have been sent to some of our biggest businesses in town. They didn't stop there. They attacked my son and my daughter-in-law, who don't even live in Orland Park. They live in Denver. They haven't lived in Orland Park since I've been elected. They live in Denver. Okay? That's the kind of stuff that they do. We have a local journalist who continues to claim that I'm actually doing these calls, that I'm sending these letters. This is simply insane, and it shows exactly how far the machine will go to try and stay in power. This is about power, pure and simple. How many of you in this room believe that at its core, Mike Madigan thinks that police should be defunded? Anybody here believe that? The problem is, he doesn't care as long as it keeps him in power. It's all about power. It's not about what's right. It's not about what's wrong. John Cass called this the bipartisan combine. It's Republicans and Democrats that have been entrenched for years that are doing this. I bring up the combine because, and now I'm going to close this up and talk about Mike Fricilone. Okay? This is what he faces in Congressional District 3. And the reason I talk about it is because he's in Homer Glen. I've known Mike for 17 years, but his district goes through Orland Park as well. Okay? He's not getting any help from the Republican Party. Are you getting any? Getting any from the National Party? Getting any from the state party? So there you heard him. No help whatsoever. The state party gave up on Cook County years ago, and now the front line of the battle is in the collar counties like Will County, because they didn't push back. They didn't fight for their ground. Orland Township is the most Republican township in Cook County. And we had a Democratic machine mayor for 24 years. And after I was elected, the Republican Party and the Democratic Party went after me. Because it's about entrenched political power. This is where the battleground is right now. It's in Congressional District 3. And we need to start pushing them back into the city right now. Mike needs your help. We can win with bodies. As Tim says, yeah, it takes money. We need money. We're not going to get money from the National Party. We're not going to get money from the state party. We're not going to get enough. What does that mean? It means you're going to have to get out there with bodies. Like I said, I've known him for 17 years. He's a good man who will represent us well. His opponent is Marie Newman, who is an AOC endorsed liberal. She's also been endorsed by Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. She supports movements that are focused on defunding the police, tearing down statues, and promoting Marxism. Half of Orland Park is in that district. And they've been sending their campaign people to protest in our town, to stand up and disrupt our meetings, because that's what they do. They're against the police. They're against us supporting the police. They spoke out against us supporting the police. How many of you know that right after all those riots and everything, that the Village of Orland Park at the next board meeting declared it Orland Park Police Appreciation Month? They were there to speak against it. Marie Newman and her supporters seek to destroy the America that we know. The looters and rioters tear down statues in Chicago, and they encourage it. Then they blame the police. When the looters and rioters are arrested, they let them go. What does the governor do? He threatens to arrest Reuben for opening up his business. He threatens to arrest me for not following his guidelines. That's what the governor does. That's what they do. Of course, in Cook County, Kim Foxx is happy to oblige and let all those looters and rioters go. Then they work with the rioters and looters to do more of it, and come to our meetings and come disrupt their towns. That's what they do. Seattle's CHOP that you've seen, that's her way, that's Marie Newman's way of moving forward. That's not what Homer Glen needs, that's not what Orland Park needs, that's not what Oak Lawn needs, that's not what Evergreen Park needs, that's not what the city of Chicago needs that are in her area. All those police and fire, I know that they're accustomed to their entire life going into the booth and voting deep. That's what they do. Because they don't think. They probably agree with us on 95% of the issues. And if you can get out there and let them know what she stands for, they will vote for Mike. Let them know what Mike stands for, they'll vote for Mike. If that wasn't enough, she wants government health care for all. How many of you have been on government health care before? I have in the military. It's not that good. So that's something else that she's looking for. She supports all forms of higher taxes, including the progressive tax that JB wants. She wants more social programs, and she wants our criminals to be allowed to roam free. I don't have to tell any of you where that leads. It leads to fewer successful businesses, fewer jobs, a weaker economy, a lower standard of living for all of us, and the government running our life, which is exactly what they want. On the other hand, Mike Fricilone is a candidate who loves America. He wants it strengthened, and he doesn't want it changed. It will be stronger by giving people like Mike the opportunity to serve you. He will make us stronger by supporting things that keep our economy strong and keep people working and keep people responsible for their own lives. We need more common sense. That is what I've been trying to do for 3 years. That is what I know Mike will do when he's in Congress. Let's take back America and start the process of taking back the economy and the state of Illinois. We need your